I'm going to admit my bias right up front here. I don't really like the one move, one shot style of fight editing. But if you're going to have it, you should at least make like Wonder Woman and ensure that it serves the themes of the story. My name is Jill Bearup, and stage combat or theatrical violence or that fake fighting stuff you see in movies is a hobby of mine. Because who wouldn't want to look heroic and dashing while swinging a sword around? Best hobby ever! As long as you don't mind the bruises. And today we're talking about Wonder Woman, which is a film I enjoyed very much, and also a film with a very specific fight scene style, which progresses in a very specific way over the runtime. Spoilers, by the way, but only for the first one, because I haven't seen the second one yet. But then again, if it's the first 2 weeks after this video's release, probably neither have you. Wonder Woman's fight scene editing can be summed up roughly thus. More doubting equals more cutting. I'm not a big fan of very fast fight editing for all of the advantages that it has for filmmakers, but I do think they chose to do it deliberately here, and I think that it mostly works. Allow me to demonstrate what I mean by more doubts equals more cuts. Little Diana, princess of the Amazons, is super confident that she can be the best warrior that Themyscira has ever seen, and she's gonna do it regardless of what her mother thinks. We cut away from her not exactly a kata about half a dozen moves in, but only so that we can see other characters and their reactions to her. Now, of course, this is easier to make good than an actual fight. You can punch the air very enthusiastically on your own and it'll probably look fine. But this hold on her face and her movements for a significant period of time underlines wee Diana's certainty in herself. When she starts training in secret with Antiope, there is a moment where we get something similar, where the camera holds on both of them, albeit from quite a distance away, while they perform several moves in a row. But generally, Diana on Themyscira has a very specific and different style of fight editing. One move, one shot. Sometimes one move will be cut across 2 shots. Sometimes you get 2 moves in the same shot. But minimal variation here. The 3 ages of Diana on Themyscira are intercut with longer shots of her mother looking on and being concerned, and her mother telling her stories, and her mother finding out about adolescent Diana's clandestine training, and her mother showing up and being a distraction at adult Diana's sparring session. And it's a montage, so it works fine. In a typical fight scene, you do need to slow down and have longer shots from further away with more moves in them, just to vary the pacing so that everything doesn't get really bewildering. But in this case, it works okay, because we're intercutting with these longer takes of Diana's mum Hippolyta doing other stuff. One move, one cut does look very dynamic, and it will definitely keep your audience awake, but it is absolutely bewildering if you do it for too long. And not only bewildering, it also looks like you lack confidence in your actor's ability to sell a fight. Or like you lack confidence in your audience's attention span, but who knows, you may be right on that one. One move, one shot provides maximum flexibility when you're editing, because you can just take the best cuts from the best takes and combine them all together in one beautiful flowing display of skill. You can make it look coherent even if your actors aren't very good at fighting, or you had to change up the choreography at the last minute, or you need to fudge one piece of the choreography into another for pacing's sake. The thing is, if you overuse it, then people might start to wonder if your actors are so bad at throwing punches that you need to constantly shift perspectives so that they look badass. And your editor has to be a proper stickler for continuity, otherwise it's just going to be a mess. The thing is, I think the cut-heavy style in the first part of the movie is deliberate, because it's very dynamic, but it doesn't seem confident, and that's just very thematically appropriate. The first montages are all, "You keep doubting yourself, Diana." And the editing reflects that. It's not unclear, it's not badly paced, but it is kind of skittish. Jumpy? The slow motion sections are worked in with the intent of showing off Diana's grace and power, but she keeps looking for approval from her mother, and so sometimes she takes her eye off the ball. Sword. Opponent. Whatever. Diana is headstrong enough even as a child to defy Hippolyta and train in secret, but well, we all want our parents to love us, right? And we underline that uncertainty in her with this use of the very fast editing style. Adult Diana's fight with Antiope when she's told, "You're stronger than this, Diana," is where we start to see a little bit more of a rhythm. Look at this! More than one move, multiple moves in one shot, appropriate distance so we can see what's going on. I mean, it doesn't last long because that whole "shoot, I just threw my aunt across the training ground with the power of I don't even know" shakes Diana up a bit, but it's a hint of things to come. The fight on the beach is very much one move, one cut with minor variations, and then sometimes we do slow motion to show you something really cool. But just wait, because things are gonna change. The thing is, the fight on the beach is not solely about Diana, and so there's a greater point to be made about the cost of war and the confusion and the pain and the skill of the Amazons. There are lots of slowed down sections both to emphasize how Diana sees the world, that is to say, as someone with literally inhuman reflexes, and also because, gosh darn it, we got all these women learning cool tricks and stunts and wire work and archery, and you will appreciate them, darn it. And I do. The emotional turning points for Diana are meeting Steve and fighting the Germans and hearing about the war to end all wars and deciding that she needs to Amazon up and go beat Ares, which means that she needs to effectively break Steve out of jail. I think the first physical turning point is not the crossed wrists, it's the long jump. And not just the long jump, but the long jump and the dangle from the tower, and then discovering that, hey, I can put a hole in stone with my bare hands. The wrist-crossing kablam thing is accidental and she doesn't yet know how to use it, but her discovery of how physically strong she is fairly pivotal. And then we echo that with the emotional strength that it takes to openly defy her mother, and her mother's acceptance, and the headband, and all that jazz. You're on your way, Diana, which means that the next fight looks a bit more confident. When we reach the secret German agents in London, we dizzyingly decide that a single kick into a wall needs 3 separate shots, because reasons. But we also get this fabulous looking shot from above. From a choreography perspective, you get to show Diana taking down multiple opponents with very little effort. That hold on one perspective underlines her growing confidence. Hat plus updo plus lots of clothes plus angle means that we can get the stunt performer in there, and so it's going to look really smooth and really nice. To borrow from Morpheus, she's beginning to believe. And then there's no man's land.
This is not what we came here to do.
No. But it's what I'm going to do.
Dramatic music, slow motion walking, bullet deflecting, running, jumping, smashing things, and then we start to follow her in earnest. There are far fewer cuts and less slow motion, and the editing overall suggests that she is far more sure of herself. Contrast this fight with basically every fight that occurs before it. The previous ones have been very quick, very fast paced, lots of cutting, but that makes them look a little bit uncertain. But here, well, I'm not going to tell you that everything is now Matrix-style long sequences with minimal editing, but it's markedly different. This is where Diana becomes Wonder Woman. And from here on out, the editing is much more typical of an action movie where everybody knows what they're doing, rather than an action movie where they're trying to hide that their actress can't punch. Or to put it another way, the editing changes from emphasizing Diana's uncertainty and bewilderment to emphasizing Diana's confidence in her mission. That isn't to say there's none of the one move, one cut style of editing going on, but there's less of it. It's part of a balanced diet instead of the whole meal. This is true in Welt, it's true in her fight with General Ludendorff, though they are in a small room, so it makes sense that that one is cut in closer, and it's true in her fight with Ares. The further into the film we get, the more confident Diana is in herself, the longer we hold on her during fight scenes. It's one of the ways we visually read the change in her as she goes through her hero's journey. Now, having a lot of cutting in fight scenes is disadvantageous in several ways. It can be hard to follow, it can be difficult to maintain continuity, it's lots more work for the editor, but it also feels lazier when watching it, even though it's more work. That just seems like the worst of all possible worlds. But I do see the advantage of having a really staccato editing style, particularly if you're going to move from that into a smoother style as the film progresses, in order to make a thematic point. Longer takes make it harder to hide stunt performers. Longer takes make it more difficult to make everything look perfect. But they also let you connect with what's happening much better. They immerse you more thoroughly in the world, and they connect you emotionally like nothing else. It's a balance, right? I think overall I'd have preferred fewer shots where we have the same move from 4 different angles, because but as a concept, more editing to less editing as a style choice is something I feel like I can get behind.